Kevin, just a point this afternoon from a hard-fought 0-0 draw away to Banbury United, where he probably did enjoy the majority of the possession and territory, but unfortunately not been able to force that all-important goal, and a point is what it is.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I think we've certainly had the best moment in the first half, and the goal is done well, and then their player to clear it right on the line when Jimmy's pretty much rolled it into an empty net. But they've done great to defend that moment to keep the scoreline at 0-0. And again, the lads would go down to 10 men, and the big moment that we go and find, and we get through 1v1, and then for the officials to have a moment there, I've seen it back, and it's a poor decision again, and doesn't allow us a massive moment in the game when you work as hard as you do and go as long as you do to try and find that moment in that situation, and when it's denied out of your hands, it's really frustrating. But like I say, the boys' application and effort levels there today were again very, very strong. It's a terribly difficult place to play football. The surface, and no passing passages of play out there, and it is very Route 1. We've had to adapt. We've changed the shape that we go with at the start of the game. And Oliver's come in and had a terrific game on his debut. And lots of other lads have really done well in difficult circumstances. It's incredibly difficult to settle the ball on that surface and pass the ball. But that's what you find, and you've got to be able to come through games and situations like it. There's no lack of effort there. Just showing that extra little bit of quality is probably a little bit that we were searching for at certain times. But we stayed strong together, even with the sending off. Like I say, would have had the best 2 moments in the game.
Sure. I mentioned to you just before I flicked the camera on, actually, before we started speaking here, that you did settle into the game very quickly, and you were on top in those early stages, probably the opening 15-20 minutes. You sometimes have that feeling that when a goal doesn't come in there, that you might suffer for it.
Yeah, it's it's hard to go and find and work moments, because, like I say, the ball doesn't settle. It spends too long in the air. The surface is incredibly bobbly. But you have to deal with that this time of the season, unfortunately, in certain places. And yeah, I think we've managed that well. We've set up in the right way, as you say. We started the game on the front foot and looked the more likely side. Banbury's had a couple of restart moments where they may feel they should have done better, but there's nothing that ever trouble Brandon. And yeah, look, it's probably a difficult watch. It is certainly for us on the side there. It's very difficult to watch it, but you have to, like I say, roll your sleeves up and deal with the conditions and the situation. And Banbury's got decent lads and decent players that are very committed to the cause. They understand what they're playing on. They do it week in, week out. It just would have been nice if there'd have been some moisture in the ground to deaden it off a little bit, so you could perhaps pass the ball and start to work the ball into wide areas. There wasn't a great deal of wing play as such in the game, was there? Because it's hard to settle the ball and get it out there. But look, you ask for application from players, you ask for an effort level. We've got all of that today. Again, probably the thing that's missing is that moment and is that goal.
Sure. Effort levels certainly were there, and in fact, thinking back, effort levels aren't a problem for this team. There is always an effort there, it feels to me. In terms of what you did with the side today, as you say, you mentioned you brought Oliver Cawthorne in. I think most people watching today would think he had an excellent debut, and you alluded to it there.
I thought it was brilliant. Again, go to 10 men, and you wouldn't notice that we were 10 men. We were still really competitive and still trying to win the game. And as I say, even with 10 men, we've come up with the best moment what would be the best moment in the game, with a 1v1. For the linesman then to go and give an offside, it's a poor decision. Like I say, I've seen it back, and difficult to stomach, really, but stomach it. You have to get on with it. You have to dust yourself down and continue to look forward, and continue to, like I say, prepare and try and put some more points on the board come next Friday. And the lads as a group, with lots of new additions, latterly into the season that have come into it and had a really good effect in there. And we've been fairly consistent over a little period now, albeit there's moments there where 1 or 2 moments, where we've been in drawn games that we probably should have won. But yeah, I can't speak highly enough for lots of them out there. Whether it's Pigo in the role that he's playing at the moment has been brilliant for us. Jid's come in and been fantastic for us. Rowie coming in as a captain had a real effect on everybody in the group. And it's great to to work with players with that real desire and hunger to want to do well. If there's a criticism of me, I should have found them a little bit sooner, and it'd been nice to have had them in the group a little bit sooner. But yeah, we are where we are with it now, and they're keeping some players that have been equally very consistent for us out of the team, and that can be difficult for some of those players to accept. But look, it's about trying to win games and getting on the front foot and being really positive in games. And like I say, every lad that we've put in there and played in there I think has done really well.
Sure. Your thoughts on Aaron Pendley's dismissal? It did come quite late on, and with you trying to force the issue, I don't think necessarily there was an absence of him defensively, because the play was going all the other way. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah,
on this?
look, the moment happens quickly, and I knew it straight away that he'd got too tight to the man. There's not many people that can run beyond or in for pace. If the lad gets the ball down and settle it and then beats him for pace from that moment, then sometimes you have to hold your hands up. But he's got too close to the guy and he's let the guy roll him, and it's a quick moment that he'll look back on and realise where he's made an error. To get so tight and then not win the first contact and allow the boy to roll him, he's made life hard for himself in that situation. Unfortunately, he's had to do that, and I have no quibble about the decision. That's where it is. I'd expect the same if their player had done it. Look, he's been brilliant for us, and hopefully he learns from that moment and that situation, and understands where his strengths lie and how to deal with it if that moment presents itself in the future.
Sure. We did have a very good, very noisy following here today. I know that all of the players and the staff went over to them at the end of the game. I think, again, we were just shy of 300 fans here. So the support was really good, wasn't it?
Brilliant. And we're lucky to have that. And the lads will be frustrated. I'm frustrated that we haven't quite delivered the 3 points for them today. But certainly, that they're behind us and they give us a lift. And it's a little bit frustrating that it hasn't quite happened for us. But unfortunately, like you say, you come to stubborn teams and difficult grounds and surfaces that you have to deal with. And it hasn't quite happened for us today. It's important that we continue to focus and make sure that hopefully with a strong home following on Friday, that we go and win in that game. Look, we've got a decent group there at the moment that's working hard for one another, and if everybody stays on board, hopefully we do stay really competitive from now until the end of the season.
Sure. Fans inevitably are going to look at the gap that's opened up today, and I know Bedford turned around a 2-0 deficit to win 3-2. That is a 4-point gap now, but you can't assume that that's done and dusted. You've got to play every game, and you'll be looking to get the maximum for this, because even if it ultimately isn't enough, you need to be in good heart for a playoff campaign.
Yeah, without a doubt. I never set up to look to draw a game or hang on in a game. I'm always setting up to try and win the game, and that's why we've changed the shape and the personnel today. And I think it had a good effect. We looked comfortable in the game, never really looked in any danger. Certainly in open play, there was no danger. You want to keep winning games. I'm not interested in trying to set up for draws and stuff like that. We need to be on the front foot and try to win it. And as when we went to 10 men, we still stayed open and expansive and still trying to push and find that moment. It won't where we sit back and think, okay, we'll take a point. We continue to drive forward. And even with 10 men, we found the best moment in the game. Unfortunately, we're denied by the officials, and that's difficult to stomach and take, and difficult for players when they're trying to do the right stuff. Sometimes that happens, and you have to get over it and get on with it and accept what's happened. It doesn't make it any easier, but look, we want to try and win these final 3 games and take Bedford or Kettering or wherever it might be as close as we possibly can.
Kevin, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.